Germany, a nation steeped in history, culture, and innovation. From its towering castles to its bustling cities, it has captivated the world for centuries. But behind its beauty lies a dark and troubled past, a period that forever marked its legacy and shaped the course of human history. We will trace the Nazi Party's rise from its humble beginnings in a Munich beer hall to its grip on every aspect of German life. The impact of their ideology on education, culture, and the media will be examined, revealing how a nation could be swayed by such a dangerous and hateful doctrine. The horrors inflicted upon Jews, religious minorities, political and ideological opponents will be unflinchingly portrayed. We will hear their stories of persecution, resilience, and unimaginable loss. Prepare yourselves, for the journey ahead is not for the faint of heart. It is a stark reminder of the fragility of freedom and the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred. But it is also a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, resist, and ultimately overcome even the darkest of times. The 1920s, a decade often remembered for its exuberance, cultural revolution, and economic prosperity. But in Germany, the reality was far more complex. Reeling from the devastating defeat in World War I, the nation was burdened with heavy war reparations and a sense of national embarrassment. The once proud German Empire had been dismantled, replaced by the Weimar Republic, a fragile democracy grappling with political instability and economic challenges. Hyperinflation gripped the nation, rendering the currency practically worthless. The streets were filled with unemployed veterans, struggling artists, and disillusioned citizens yearning for stability and a return to greatness. Yet amidst the confusion, there were glimmers of hope. The Weimar Republic, despite its flaws, fostered a vibrant cultural scene. Berlin in particular became a crucible of creativity, a magnet for artists, writers and thinkers from across Europe. Theatres buzzed with avant-garde performances. Lively cafes resonated with passionate discussions about art, politics, and the meaning of life. It was a time of experimentation, of pushing boundaries and challenging societal norms. German science and technology flourished, with groundbreaking advancements in fields such as physics, medicine, and engineering. However, beneath this veneer of progress, deep divisions simmered within German society. The scars of war ran deep, leaving behind a legacy of bitterness and a yearning for someone to blame. Political extremism found fertile ground in the fertile soil of economic hardship and social unrest. The Treaty of Versailles, which officially ended World War I, was widely perceived as a humiliating agreement imposed upon the German people. Nationalist sentiment grew, fueled by the belief that Germany had been betrayed by its own leaders and unfairly punished by the victors of the war. The seeds of bitterness, sown in the aftermath of defeat, were beginning to sprout, threatening to choke the fragile shoots of democracy. Don't forget to like and subscribe now. In the heart of this turmoil, a new voice began to rise. A voice that spoke of national pride, of restoring Germany to its former glory, of a 1,000-year Reich. This was the voice of Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Brown Shirts as they came to be known. At first, they were dismissed as a fringe group, a collection of disgruntled veterans and radical nationalists. But their message, skillfully crafted to exploit the anxieties and prejudices of the time, began to resonate with a growing segment of the population. The Brown Shirts were masters of propaganda, using every available means to spread their message of division and control. Newspapers, radio broadcasts, and public rallies became platforms for their harmful rhetoric. Jews were blamed for Germany's economic troubles, portrayed as threats, as enemies of the state. The Brown Shirts skillfully exploited ancient prejudices and fears, twisting them to serve their own harmful agenda. They appealed to the basest instincts of the masses, promising a return to a mythical past where Germany reigned supreme. Slowly, Almost imperceptibly at first, life in Germany began to change. The brown shirts' influence seeped into every aspect of society. Their stormtroopers, clad in their menacing brown shirts, became a ubiquitous presence on the streets, intimidating opponents and enforcing their will through force and intimidation. The Weimar Republic, already teetering on the brink, proved powerless to stop the brown shirts' tide. Their promises of economic recovery and national revival resonated with a population desperate for change, for a way out of the darkness. Few could have predicted the horrors that awaited them, the depths of depravity to which their nation would sink. The year is 1939. Europe stood on the edge of disaster. The brown shirts' war machine, driven by twisted beliefs and unquenchable ambition, was ready to unleash chaos upon the world. On September 1st, German tanks thundered across the Polish border, shattering the uneasy peace that had held since the end of the Great War. World War II had begun. For the average German, the outbreak of war brought a mixture of worry and grim determination. Years of brown shirts propaganda had taken their toll, instilling a sense of both invincibility and fear. The fatherland was under threat, surrounded by enemies that sought to destroy her. Sacrifices would have to be made, hardships endured for the greater good of the nation. Almost overnight, life in Germany was transformed. The gears of industry shifted from producing consumer goods to churning out tools of war. Rationing was introduced, limiting access to basic necessities like food, clothing and fuel. Men and women were conscripted into the armed forces or directed to work in essential industries. The streets, once bustling with life, took on a more subdued atmosphere. The ever-present threat of air raids cast a long shadow over daily life. As the war progressed, the brown shirts' grip on German society tightened. Dissent was ruthlessly suppressed. The secret police, the brown shirts' secret force, became a feared and omnipresent presence, monitoring every aspect of life and silencing any whisper of opposition. The persecution of Jews and other minorities intensified. Synagogues were damaged, businesses destroyed, and families torn apart. The horrors of the Holocaust, the systematic extermination of 6 million Jews, began to unfold in the shadows, hidden from the view of many ordinary Germans, but casting a long and indelible stain on the nation's soul. Despite the hardships, many Germans remained fiercely loyal to the brown shirts regime, swept up in the tide of nationalism and influenced by the regime's propaganda. Victories on the battlefield in the early years of the war fueled a sense of excitement and invincibility. Yet, beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to appear. As the war dragged on and casualties mounted, the initial enthusiasm waned. Doubt crept in, whispered in hushed tones behind closed doors. The war that was supposed to bring glory to Germany was instead bringing devastation and loss. By 1943, the tide of the war had begun to turn against Germany. The once invincible Wehrmacht, bogged down in the vastness of the Eastern Front and facing relentless Allied assaults in the West, began to show signs of strain. The myth of German invincibility, so carefully cultivated by the brown shirts' propaganda machine, was slowly crumbling in the face of relentless setbacks and mounting casualties. The Battle of Stalingrad, a brutal and protracted siege that cost hundreds of thousands of German lives, marked a turning point in the war. No longer could the German people ignore the terrible cost of their leaders' ambitions. The relentless Allied bombing campaign, which reduced entire German cities to rubble, brought the war home in a way that few could have imagined. The crumbling home front. Life in Germany, already challenging under wartime conditions, deteriorated further as the war dragged on. Rationing became increasingly strict, leaving many struggling to get by on meagre portions of food and fuel. The constant threat of air raids, coupled with the ever-present fear of the police, created an atmosphere of anxiety and worry. The cracks in the facade of brown shirts' unity were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Shadows of doubt began to appear. Whispers of doubt, once confined to hushed conversations behind closed doors, began to emerge more openly. The news from the front, carefully curated by the brown shirts' propaganda machine, could no longer hide the true scale of the German losses. The sight of refugees fleeing the advancing Allied armies, their belongings piled high on carts, served as a stark reminder of the impending danger. The illusion of invincibility, carefully constructed by years of propaganda, was beginning to shatter. The weight of truth became unbearable. The German people, bombarded with conflicting narratives, struggled to make sense of the rapidly deteriorating situation. The official line, spouted by brown shirt officials and echoed through the controlled media, spoke of imminent victory, of wonder weapons that would crush the enemy. But the reality on the ground told a different story. The constant air raids, the growing shortages, the news of German defeats all pointed towards a grim and uncertain future. The seeds of doubt sown by the harsh realities of war were beginning to take root. The year 1945 dawned bleakly over a Germany broken and battered. The once proud cities transformed into smouldering ruins by relentless Allied bombing. The streets, once bustling with life, were eerily silent. In the spring of 1945, the Allied armies closed in on Berlin. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet troops fought their way towards the heart of the city, Hitler took his own life. The news of his passing marked the end of the nightmare that had engulfed Germany for 12 long years. With the fall of the brown shirts regime, Germany was left to confront the devastation wrought by its leaders. The nation lay in ruins, its infrastructure shattered, its economy in shambles, its people physically and emotionally exhausted. The war had cast a long shadow over Germany, leaving an indelible stain on its soul. The immediate aftermath of the war was a time of chaos and confusion. Millions of refugees wandered the shattered landscape in search of food, shelter, and normalcy. The Allied powers set about the process of denazification, seeking to root out the remnants of the brown shirts regime. The Nuremberg trials exposed the horrific extent of brown shirts' atrocities. The road to recovery would be long and arduous, fraught with challenges and setbacks. From the ashes of destruction, a new Germany would eventually emerge, determined to build a better future. The echoes of jackboots have long since faded from the streets of German cities, replaced by the hopeful patter of children's feet. The spectres of swastikas no longer cast their ominous shadows over cobblestone squares, their hateful presence supplanted by the vibrant hues of a free and diverse society. Germany, once synonymous with the horrors of brown shirts rule, has charted a remarkable course of redemption, emerging from the ashes of its past to become a beacon of democracy, tolerance, and international cooperation. Yet, the lessons of this tumultuous period remain as relevant as ever, whispered on the wind that carries the memories of those who endured the darkness. The rise of the brown shirts, the seduction of a nation by hate, the horrors inflicted upon the innocent, serve as a chilling reminder of the fragility of freedom, the seductive allure of extremism, and the devastating consequences of unchecked prejudice. The world has witnessed firsthand the depths of cruelty to which humanity can sink when hatred is allowed to fester, when fear triumphs over reason, and when silence becomes complicity. The scars of the Holocaust, etched deep into the conscience of mankind, serve as a solemn vow, a promise whispered from generation to generation, never again. As we reflect upon the events that transpired in Germany before and during brown shirts' rule, let us not simply remember the past, but learn from it. Let us remain vigilant in the face of intolerance, resolute in our defense of human rights, and unwavering in our commitment to building a world where the mistakes of history are never repeated. For the sake of our children, For the future of humanity, we must never forget the lessons learned from the darkest chapters of human history. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time. Like and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content, including topics on politics, crowd psychology, religious extremism, and much more.